Welcome to another episode of The Epic Family Road Trip.
In November 2016, we headed to New Zealand to embark on a 6-month road trip around both the North and South Island. We shipped our 2012 Jeep Wrangler Arctic retrofitted for overlanding across the globe from Toronto to Auckland. We had no set plans, no agenda, and little knowledge of the country that we were about to spend half the year living in and would eventually cover over 10,000 kilometers of in our little ice blue Jeep that the 5 of us called home. We wanted adventure, and New Zealand gave it to us. Come along with us while we live out of our backpacks in our Jeep as we explore a new country full of unexpected adventures and breathtaking scenery around every corner.
This is the last episode of our New Zealand adventure. Last week we left the South Island after 3 beautiful months down there, and we arrived in Wellington on the North Island. This week we're going to traverse the west coast of the North Island and head all the way up to the top of New Zealand, a place called Cape Reinga. And we're going to encounter many fun adventures along the way. After a wonderful stay in Whanganui, we headed to the west coast to a place called Taranaki. There's a huge volcano there that we intended to climb, however the weather didn't cooperate. In fact, it was obscured by the clouds. We talked to someone at the Department of Conservation and they recommended that we do not go up the mountain. So we spent the night there and enjoyed the black sand beaches instead. We drove all the way out to the Taranaki region today with the plan of hiking Mount Taranaki, which is normally over there, and you'd see a big mountain peak, a big huge peak, but the weather's not cooperating, and the next couple of days is supposed to be clouded over completely. We talked to the Department of Conservation people and they said not to climb during this kind of weather, so I don't think we can wait around till next Tuesday for the weather to clear up. So we're gonna spend the evening down here by the beach and then head up to what's called the Tongariro crossing. After a nice stay in Taranaki, we headed up the west coast. Our intention was to head out to a place called the Tongariro region, which is another volcanic area. But along the way, just like everywhere in New Zealand, you have to keep your eyes open. There's all these little hidden gems that might not be in the tourist magazines or listed anywhere, but if you keep your eyes open, you'll see some amazing places. We were driving north and we saw a little sign that said 3 Sisters, 4 kilometers that way. So we just followed the sign and we ended up right on the edge of the ocean. We did a little hike. After a beautiful hike along the ocean, we next headed over to a place called Tongariro, or Tongariro National Park. This is a volcanic area, very active. In fact, it erupted back in 2007, and we set up camp at the base of the volcano, which was a little bit out of our comfort zone. But it was a beautiful area, and we ended up doing a wonderful hike to a waterfall. Our intention there as well was to do what's called the Tongariro Alpine Crossing, but the weather again didn't cooperate. In fact, we waited a couple of days, and every day we went in and checked to see if they had opened the pass, but it didn't look like it was going to open for another 3 or 4 days, so we just moved on and headed north. Before we left the region, we spent the night at the historic Chateau Tongariro. In the morning we got up and made the hike out to a place called Taranaki Falls. The scenery was spectacular. See, the mountain in the background is covered over again, so there's no visibility, so hiking or climbing that is off the books for today. And it's been kind of cold and rainy. We moved from the coast, which is really warm, to higher up in higher elevations here in the mountains, and it's cold, and I thought it'd be a good night to get a hotel room and kind of warm up a bit and hopefully feel a bit better, and we can get caught up on our school and our blogging and all that stuff we need to do. And the only hotel available is the Chateau Tongariro. After that wonderful hike, we headed north to a place called Raglan, which is on the west coast. This is a famous surfing town, and we set up camp right alongside the ocean. We got our boards waxed up and we hit the beach.
While we were there, we met an amazing couple from Hawaii. It's really neat when you meet people that care and spend time teaching us how to surf, how to read the waves, and just really how to appreciate the ocean.
After a couple of awesome days surfing in Raglan, we then drove across the country to the east coast, back to our favorite beach, Papamoa, in Tauranga, and we spent a couple of days surfing on the east coast waves. Good morning, we're back here in Taranaki on the east side of New Zealand, on the east coast, enjoying another beautiful sunrise. Fortunate enough to be able to set up our camp right here on the beach, and we look forward to hopefully getting out there and doing some surfing today with the kids. We then began our trek to the Northlands of New Zealand. Our first stop along the way was a place called Orari Point, south of Auckland.
We then drove north through Auckland to a town called Whangarei, where we rented a cabin for my 15th birthday.
Next, we drove to the west coast to Ahipara. This is another famous surfing beach.
We spent a couple of weeks there because the surf was so amazing. Ahipara is at the base of the 90-mile beach. This is a beach that runs right up the west coast to the northernmost tip of the Northlands, to a town, or actually just a small community called Cape Reinga. The 90-mile beach is an amazing place. When the tide's out, 2 hours before the tide goes out and 2 hours after it comes in, you can actually drive your vehicle all the way up. And along the way there's a place that has giant sand dunes. And you can rent sandboards there and have a lot of fun racing down the sand dunes. After the giant sand dunes, we headed north to the very tip of New Zealand, a place called Cape Reinga. This is where two oceans meet. The Tasman Sea collides into the Pacific Ocean. It's amazing to stand on those cliffs and overlook the area where the waves are churning as these two oceans meet. spent a couple of weeks in Ahipara. It was one of our favorite surfing beaches and just a wonderful place to stay. This is actually where we started filming the episodes of the Epic Family Road Trip. So if you look at episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'll catch the rest of our New Zealand adventure if you haven't already seen it. In those episodes, we go diving in the Poor Knights Islands, we go mountain biking in Rotorua. After a wonderful time in Rotorua, we headed back to Auckland to prepare and ship our Jeep back to Canada. The trip was winding down, but we had one more adventure to do, and that was to go sailing in Auckland. That was an awesome experience as well. Make sure you watch episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 to catch those fun and exciting adventures. Also, make sure you join us next week because we're now back in Canada and we're heading to the east coast of Canada to the Maritime Provinces. As always, thank you for following along. Thank you for being a subscriber to our channel. And in the meantime, we'll see you down the road.